Schmook, and we are here to discuss the season finale of The Last of Us, and it was quite an episode, guys. So, I've been waiting to witness this in live action for over 10 years now, and it didn't miss. I think this and the pilot, as well as the Henry and Sam episode, are some of the best episodes in television history in terms of writing, in terms of cinematography, and just epicness, you know? Like, what's different between this and the video game? I like to, go into the differences, of course, right? To me, the main difference is that in the game, it shows Joel as this, again, this OP type of guy. Where in this, it makes him more human. Where it's like he's not just taking out guys and clickers left and right. As well as just, like, he seems a little bit more of a badass. Even though we know this Joel, played by Pedro, has done quite a bit within his life during the apocalypse. In terms of, like, the horrors he has done. But we don't really get that much of it throughout this show, in my opinion. Where in the game, it's like Joel is constantly doing stuff that proves why he's like that guy. Like, that proves why he's just a total badass. We get a bigger hint of this in the last episode. Where he's like interrogating these guys. And he's like, I'll pop your fucking kneecap right off. But in this, we finally get to see him just let loose. He's pissed off, and he's just ready to go to town on people. But we'll get into that in a bit. So, the start of this episode, which is not in the game at all, I think is one of the more emotional scenes in the entire show, as well as just great acting and just an absolutely terrifying thing to even think about in this scenario. Where it's Anna, who's Ellie's mom, giving birth to Ellie when an infected person is coming after her. So you can kind of see what happens because Ellie obviously isn't around her mom. So yes, Anna does pass away. She's able to give birth at the same time of having to kill some infected person on top of her, which is a monumental task to begin with. But yeah, so we find out that she was bit while she was giving, like, in the birthing process. So that's most likely the reason why Ellie is immune. You can go into the idea that, of course, Anna had to kill this infected with her switchblade knife, right? That is, of course, passed down to Ellie, which is a pretty key thing. Where I think the knife on its own is, like, potentially her killing this infected and then cutting the umbilical cord could be the reason why she is immune. I don't know if it's necessarily that Anna was bit while giving birth, but it could spread that fast for all I know, like where Ellie has always been infected since the moment of birth. But that could be something that gets they could dive more into through later seasons, potentially, because I don't know what's cooking up in Neil Druckmann's head, especially if they're about to do a Last of Us Part 3, Anyway, so that's an amazing sequence, and of course, one of the best parts is that Anna, Ellie's mom, is being played by the woman who brought Ellie to life, who is what is her name? Ashley Johnson? Yeah, I believe that's her name. I'm blanking at the moment. I'm pretty sure that's her name. She's she's also in the first Avengers movie, which is a fun fact. She's like one of the main like side characters that, like, doesn't really matter. She's just some woman in the background witnessing the events of New York, but she's also on, like, a news broadcast talking about what happened. So anytime I watch the Avengers, I'm like, oh, I'm just hearing Ellie's voice, right? So what's awesome is I felt the same way in this. I'm like, oh, I'm hearing Ellie within a Last of Us television show, which is cool. But anyway, so she gets bit, and then Marlene finds Anna and they've been friends their whole lives is basically what I'm getting from. Where Marlene is basically like the aunt slash adopted mother of Ellie. I don't know how much Marlene has told Ellie about her relationship with Ellie's mom, but I think it's cool that she's there at the moment of her birth, as well as her mother's death, who was one of her best friends. Even more so, she she walks in on Anna where she's just looking dreadful. You can tell like she feels like she's close to turning, like she has to be. Where she even has the knife up to her like throat just in case, like because she doesn't want this baby to get mauled by this infected, right? Oh, nice. Okay, Harris. So I'll kind of go bit by bit. I don't want to really spoil anything for you, of course. But glad you're finally watching it. You're going to be pleasantly surprised. We're not surprised because you know it's been excellent this whole time, but you'll be very happy with this episode. But who knows? A lot of people are actually very disappointed with the ending, which I won't get into quite yet. But the ending itself is, I think, could be the thing that splits a fan base, being like, oh, what does Joel do here in terms of the grand scheme of things? It's a very selfish act, but that's okay. That's what makes him kind of the man. It's like, listen, like, this is my life. I'm gonna spend it with as much time with the person I love most, which is a beautiful thing. Anyway, so Anna gives birth to Ellie, and then Marlene comes in and like basically Anna's like, you have to kill me. Marlene's obviously like, I can't do it. Like, you're one of my best friends. Like, how would you be in that situation if your best friend gets infected with some disease that's irreversible and you're gonna die and become one of these crazy things, right? It'd be near impossible to like not want to obviously, but yeah, right. I know, Harris. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, she gets bit like whilst giving birth. I'm like, that's one of the toughest women I've ever seen in any piece of television or anything, because it's like, one, giving birth to a child is one of the most beautiful, strongest acts that anyone could do. And at the same time, you're taking out this thing that's trying to murk you. I'm like, oh my god, like, you are a badass. But anyway, so we get to Marlene where she has to take out Anna, unfortunately. And what I really like about this scene is where she's like, I'm not gonna do this. But Anna's like, listen, you got to. And she's like, take this knife, this is hers, and her name is Ellie. And I'm like, oh, okay. Very nice. It's nice that her mom did in fact name her, and that's a piece of Anna's memory that stays alive through Ellie. It is kind of crazy to get pregnant in this world, but you know what? Things happen, you know. But it's crazy. She gives birth to the cure to all of this. And regardless, the way this episode ends is where it's like, wow, okay, what did Joel do here? But again, we still have a lot more to dissect. I feel bad for you, Harris, because I want to like get fully into this without spoiling things for you, but I digress. I gotta do what I gotta do. Regardless, so now we get back to the modern time where Ellie's obviously. So Joel just keeps trying to talk to Ellie, like trying to get her to open up, be her normal self. So, yeah, so Harris, great point there that I forgot to mention. It gets to a point where she's like, she's hungry. I don't want to nurse her just in case. So yeah, I don't think it's the nursing part. I think it's just like, it's either the idea that she got bit or it has to do with the umbilical cord being cut with the knife that killed this thing. And I think it's kind of neat that Ellie holds on to this knife the whole way. So I think that plays a pretty key factor. Lana? Again, I think that'd be cool. That's something that they dive deeper into later on. But yeah. Okay, yeah, no, Marlene's a cool character, and I'm pretty sure the actress that plays her is the actress who did the mocap for Marlene in the video game. I'm pretty positive about that. So that's pretty awesome that they like one they bring her back, and that she plays a very good role. Even though it sucks she's not in this that much, but she plays the exact same amount of time, I would say, roughly as in the video game. So of course it's all about Joel and Ellie and their whole quest adventure, which makes it sound more fun than it is because it's hell. So maybe their journey. I'll say their journey makes a lot. That's the more fulfilling word. Um, but yeah, again, it's mainly about them and everything they go through. There's one line or there's one piece of dialogue that I really love. It is towards the end of the episode where it's like Marlene's like, "Listen, I came down here just like you from Boston with 5 of my best guys, and like half of them died protecting me. How the idea that you like I can't believe how much I don't you are the one person I did not want to be in debt to because you did this monumental task on your own." And she's like, "How did you do it?" And it's like it's obvious. Like he knew this was someone that he wanted to protect, not just for the cure, but for his own well being. That this is someone that he loves, that he's been able to become him again, which he hasn't been since before the apocalypse, where he's able to be this natural, fun-loving dad type of guy instead of this hardened badass due to him losing everything. He was finally able to gain that love back, and it's a beautiful thing. And love will have you do whatever it takes, right? And he does whatever it takes to protect Ellie, and that's a beautiful idea. Um, I had another point to go off of that, but I did lose it there. Oh well. I will go back to where I was. So Ellie's obviously in her head over what happened with the whole David fiasco. Where one, she brutally murdered this guy. But of course he tried to do some unspeakable things to her. One, she is a child. Two, she was about to get raped by David, which is like it's truly horrifying, especially just what she does to him afterwards. It's like she cuts him up into little pieces. She has to be a little bit terrified of what she's becoming also. And Joel, what he's just trying to do is like he can tell from the get-go that Ellie's not being herself right now. He keeps trying to be like, "Oh, I used to play guitar. If you want, I could teach you." And when you play Last of Us Part 2, it's awesome. He's like, "I promise you I'd teach you." And like he plays the guitar for her. And he's like, "All right, tomorrow I'll give you your first lesson." It's like that's how this part 2 opens up, which I can't wait to see. I'm very curious how the world reacts to part 2 because it's very controversial. It's one of the most controversial video games of all time. But it does have a very intriguing message that like life is just not a fairy tale. There's no happy endings. Agreed, Harris. Ellie's mom getting shot is sad but beautiful. Where it's like she doesn't want to do it. Marlene does not want to kill her, but she just marches into the room and just pops her immediately and walks right out. Where it's like she's gonna make it quick. Like you can't just like the idea of like again killing your best friend just to like make sure they don't turn into one of these things is terrible. But ultimately you're doing the right thing there, I would think. But again, that's I was gonna like take a huge toll on you. But yeah, so basically again, so Joel and Ellie they're almost to Salt Lake City, so they're very close to their destination, which they went from Boston all the way to there. Where Joel has been all the way from Texas to Boston to Salt Lake City, like all around the country, basically on foot. Like in a car too, but like not as much as he's been on foot. So that's wild enough on its own. So again, Joel's trying to just get her to be her again because like he loves that. He loves when she's like happy and like just being goofy, truly being her. And he knows like she's just in her head too much, so he's gonna do what he can. So he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna teach you how to play guitar, Um, and he's like, well, let's do some puns and whatnot. So Ellie does whip out one. Like, they both have a laugh, or like Joel's like, that's fucking stupid, or whatever. Like, so it's great. Um, and then they get to a certain part where Ellie's still kind of down in the dumps. She sees something that Joel doesn't see, so she hauls up to the top of this building that they're in. And you have a very majestic and beautiful experience that you see this in the apocalypse. You're obviously in awe, and you're like, this is something that no matter how you're feeling, you're just gonna feel uplifted. Like, oh, life prevails no matter what. Where they end up seeing a giraffe, and they start. Oh yeah, what's up? I see that there's someone else in here watching the stream. I hope you're enjoying so far. But again, also make sure to say something in the chat. Let's talk some Last of Us. But anyway, so they see this giraffe, and you know that has to be a very uplifting thing. You're seeing this life that's not human. It's not these cordyceps, right? And that just you have to feel a certain way. It's like you're going to the zoo, right? And then so what's great about this, I like seeing Ellie feed the giraffe, which I thought was CGI, but it was in fact a real life giraffe they brought on set up. Because I remember watching this, I'm like, this has to be CGI, but I'm like, this is beautiful CGI if it is. But I think it came out today, they showed some behind the scenes stuff, or it could have been the behind the scenes at the end of the episode, but I did not happen to watch that. I was waiting until the entire show is done to just watch all the behind the scenes stuff straight through, because I like hearing like the creators obviously talk about this and what's their mindset when talking about their baby, their creation, right? But anyway, so they're feeding the giraffe. It's awesome to see, and then they go around the corner. They see that's a whole family of giraffes. So that's a great scene on its own, which is straight from the video game, of course. But it's crazy to see a giraffe, you know, just out in this world, just roaming free. They're one of the coolest animals out there too. Like, they're very unique. The military drops bombs and not one of them hit the building they were trying to demolish. Lol. Oh, true. Anyway, where was I going with this? Anyway, so they basically leave and they start having a conversation, which I thought was one of the best parts of the episode, which was not in the video game itself, where Joel just so he talks about this scar on his noggin, right? And he talks about this guy who missed on a shot. And it's like, and Ellie just basically goes, well, I'm happy he missed. And he's like, me too. But the guy who missed was me. So it's basically him being like, he's talking about Sarah beforehand. He's just like, I just wanted out. Like he was gonna take his own life. But he talks about how, like, in that moment I flinched, and he just kept pushing on in this world that he wanted no part of because he lost the love of his life. He saw his brother. He found Tess, but he never found that. He never had that person that meant more than life to him, that he would do anything for, truly. And he finds that through Ellie, and she's the one that is able to bring him back to who he used to be, and that's so beautiful. What I love about that is just how Joel is just a softie. He truly is. For the people he truly cares and loves, he's just a softie. But I just love their dynamic the most. Like, it feels so natural and so human, and that's how you are with the people you truly love. Like, where I think in this moment, it's Joel being like, blood is more than blood, you know? And I think that's obviously what the writers are trying to show, like, how, like, there's people in my life that, like, we have zero blood connection. I think everyone has that too, but you just find those people that you just have an unspeakable bond with. Just that chemistry is unnatural. And that's what Joel and Ellie have. That's what he had with his daughter too, where it's like, that is your best friend, where you can talk about anything and just have the time of your life with each other. And that also brings to the point where Joel was a dead man. him trying to kill himself. Ever since then, after losing Sarah, he's been dead. He's been walking dead. Well, no, but it's just the fact that Ellie brings him back to life. Basically, she resurrects him, brings him back to being who he was, and that's just the message right there that time does eventually heal all wounds, because there's always something worth fighting for. And he finally found that. That's what made him able to get her from all the way from Boston all the way to Salt Lake City, which is an insane distance. Just two people. Yes, you get a few companions along the way, but it's ultimately them the whole time. And it's crazy. Like, you spend that much time with one person, of course you're gonna fall in love with them, like platonically or romantically. In this case, definitely platonically. But you spend that much time with someone, it's, unless you hate each other from the get-go, which, I mean, well, they kind of did, but you're able to like see all the things that makes them so unique and pure and human that anyone. Sorry, Bob, if you ever watch this. And I was hoping to get him or my buddy Mike or my buddy Jorge on, and that's probably what I should have done. Well, I know people are usually busy, but I guess apparently they're not. It is a little later on my end, but I digress. But again, I think that scene alone is just so beautiful, where you just have Joel talking about how he almost killed himself, and how it truly shows that this person brought him back. And that's when I think at this point they might be telling a little bit of the puns, which is always a great moment in the show and the video game when they're talking the puns, right? I think it's always great. Because they both just like stupid humor. And like, who doesn't? Like, it's just dumb half the time. Sometimes they're really good. But anyway, so they're doing this, and then a flashbang comes out of the blue, and it happens to be the Fireflies, knocks out Joel, and they're taken to the hospital. And Joel wakes up, and Marlene's there. And we see that Ellie's obviously not with Joel, but Marlene's saying she's getting prepped for surgery, and Joel's like, why? He questions that immediately, why she's being prepped for surgery. And Marlene just explains the whole idea of why she's immune, to an extent. Not necessarily the origins of it, to an extent, yes. But what she's saying basically is that it's in her brain, and they have to remove it. And Joel's like, huh? So basically, Ellie's gonna be killed, just to extract a cure for this. And Marlene's just like, listen, you got to get out of here. Like, she tells her guys, you got to escort him. She has this whole sequence with Joel saying, hey, I can't believe you're able to get her all the way to Salt Lake City. Which is, of course, a very monumental task. But anyway, so he's starting to be escorted out by these guys, by this, just these Firefly soldiers, right? There's a lot of security at this hospital, because of course I think that's like the main Firefly base at this moment in time. So Joel's getting escorted out. He's kind of he's taking a long time looking at all around the place, being like, okay, there's potentially someone there. This is the layout, and he's going a little slow, and the guy's like, pick it up. He gets to the stairwell. He takes out these two guys in an epic fashion, and then this whole sequence, from this point on, again, this episode has been perfect to me, nonetheless. But this point on is where I'm like, this is why I fell in love with this show to begin with. Where, one, you just have Joel deciding, I'm taking matters into my own hands. I'm going to save what I love. And I have the power to do so. Where, in the past, he felt powerless when he lost the love of his life. In this case, he can do something. He was unable to do anything before. Now he can. He can save this person. So he goes through this hospital just taking people out left and right. He's a badass, of course. but he's showing no mercy whatsoever. He wants to have no one alive after this to say what happened. So he gets to the room where Ellie's being she's in the operating room, I guess. Yeah. Um, and then there's this doctor who's like, "You don't know what you're doing," blah blah blah. He holds up a scalpel, and then Joel's like, "All right, bam," shoots him immediately, just like that. And I will say, not to spoil anything, ultimately, that scene, even though it seems it's very quick. That's one of the most important things to have to do with what season 2 and season 3 is going to be about, which is basically confirmed. How they're saying there's going to be multiple seasons for The Last of Us Part 2, which is cool. Because I would like them to dive deeper into it. They're saying there's going to be some monumental changes, as well as like it's going to be very honorable to what came before. But yeah, not to talk about that too much, but yeah, that plays a huge key plot point in part 2. Anyway, so then he holds up a gun to these 2 nurses who are helping the surgeon. He's like, unconnect her, unhook her from the machines and whatnot, because he got there just in time too. He's like, wrap up the wound from the IV, because otherwise blood would just keep spewing out. And so he grabs her and he takes her down to this basement area, or this parking garage, I should say. And that's where he runs into Marlene. And that's where Marlene's like, you literally doomed everyone just for what? To have a few more years with her, or even a long life, but you've doomed the whole race. And then it cuts away from that whole sequence to Joel driving, where it's like you could think, okay, he left her. See, I agree. I do agree with that, Harris. There are very few, which is, to me, a little problematic, where it's like, how serious is this thing? Even though in the whole Kansas City arc with Henry and Sam, like, you see how there's like there's hundreds of these things that just come chasing after them, and even like huge terrifying ones. It's like, where have they been? Like, where are they? So like, and that's okay. Like, they make this first season very much about the human nature of what happens in the apocalypse, and less so on what started it to begin with, which I'm cool with. Where The Walking Dead kind of takes the opposite approach, in my eyes, where it starts off with this being the threat, where the real threat itself is actually more so humans. But if you play the games, it's like, the clickers are nothing to bat your eyes to, or just to say, they're fine. Like, where The Walking Dead zombies become like very, whatever. It's not that big of a deal, even though sometimes things happen. But clickers are way more terrifying and harder to kill. But what Neil Druckmann said, or Craig Mazin said, that they definitely plan on having a lot more infected in the next few seasons. So you can definitely see, I bet the next few seasons are going to be a lot more action-driven, which I'm cool with. Where this one was just getting to know Joel and Ellie, which I really like and appreciate, because their dynamic is very important to me, and what it means, as terms of like what it means to love someone unconditionally. Anyway, so it cuts to Joel in this car where you think maybe he left Ellie with Marlene, where Marlene's even like, oh, hey, you can leave her here. You can leave her, and we can fix it all. Like, this never happened. You can go. We'll find a way. So it cuts to Joel in the car, and it's like, all right, maybe he left her there, but then you see Ellie waking up in the back seat. He's like, hey, so he basically feeds her this lie, where she's like, hey, I mean, they did some tests on you. Apparently there's a lot of others like you, but there's no cure. And that's where Ellie's like, all right, then what was the point of all this? Like, it had to mean something. Like, to her, like, this meant something, especially since all these people along the way died just for her. And Joel did this ultimate selfish act, but out of love. So it's like he may have doomed the world, but he saved his world. It's like, what would you do? You know, like what would you do? Like you're like, I'm gonna die anyway, one of these days. And same with Ellie, but I want more time with her, and I'm gonna do that. So he does that, and then we get to one of the most heartbreaking things in the entire show, in the entire video games. You have them walking up to Jackson. Where in the video game they're walking up to the dam. They just made it Jackson, so it's like, okay, we got to know where Jackson is, because that's a their main place where they live in part 2. But they get there, and along the way, I like how Joel is having this conversation with Ellie, like, I think you would have liked Sarah, and I know she would have liked you. I mean, you guys were different, but you guys would have liked each other. And it's like, okay, I like that. Then we get to the very last scene of the show where Joel's like, all right, we're here, basically, because they're overlooking the colony. And Ellie just goes, swear to me. Swear to me that everything you said about these fireflies is true. Because she has to trust him. Because she didn't want all of this to be for nothing. And Joel just takes a little bit, and he just goes, I swear it. That's like a nice little pause, and then Ellie just goes, okay. Cut the black. Exactly like the video game. It's like, it's one of the best endings in anything, in my opinion. It's just like, okay, well, he just completely lied to this person he loves, which will immediately ruin a relationship if she finds out, and it's already kind of starting. Because what they had before will never quite be the same, even though they'll still always love each other, but it just won't be the same. I'll tell you that now. But that was the show. I love it to death. Joel, again, is one of my favorite characters because he's a badass. He's a very good-hearted man. But all he cares about is saving the ones he loves, and that's what he's going to do every time. And that's a good thing. Even though in this case it was a very selfish reason, instead of saving the whole world, he saves that one person. And sometimes it's just that one person you care about. Like, I mean, you're not going to meet everyone in this world. But again, he could have never met Ellie to begin with. And that's the thing. Like, you can always meet someone that you can fall in love with. And he stopped that from happening with a lot of different people, because now ultimately they could all turn. But yeah, guys, that was the last. Oh, actually, real quick, just a quick thing. As Joel is going through the hospital, I love this orchestra version of the Last of Us theme. I like this. It's so somber and slow, but it hits so hard as he's just slowly going down, mowing people. Where I'm like, in the video game, it's definitely more like, oh, he's just going complete animal on these people, and he's doing that in this case. But it's more like, it's more strategic and smart, which I really like. It makes it less of a video game, more of like a realistic thing, right? But anyway, guys, I think Pedro and Bella did an amazing job playing these two characters I have loved for over 10 years now. And I really see them as these characters. Where from the get-go, I wasn't quite sold on the casting. I've said this before, especially with Bella. And I like Pedro as an actor, but I was always more in the boat of Hugh Jackman or even a Josh Brolin playing Joel. And that would be the more accurate depiction of it. Not even just race-wise, in terms of like how they act. I could see either of them playing Joel to a T, but I like that they wanted to go a little bit different with these characters. I think Ellie is definitely way more, I'm blanking on the word, but she's much more in line with the character she plays, or with the character from the video game, right? Where this Joel is definitely a different Joel from the one in the game, but they're still similar, same mindset, right? But again, I really loved what everyone involved had to do. I think it's had some of the best cinematography in any show I've ever seen, some of the best dialogue in a show I've ever seen when it comes to how natural human conversation can be, where most of the show is just Joel and Ellie talking and having a conversation, or even Joel and Tommy, Joel and Tess, Bill and Frank, Ellie and Riley. It just shows how if you love someone, it surely brings out the most natural part of you and takes off that mask that a lot of people seem to wear in this life. And I love how they did that in this show. But yeah, from top to bottom, from visuals, score, acting, writing, directing, everything. I love this show. HBO Max is killing it right now with original content, with House of the Dragon and this, as well as Succession, which is having its final season coming out very soon. And but yeah, guys, I look forward for what else is to come. Season 2 will hopefully come out within 2 years. I hope we don't have to wait a long time, but who knows? They're apparently going to start filming this year. I look forward to, again, House of the Dragon, as well as this Jon Snow show that we were supposed to be getting. And whatever else HBO brings us, because so far they're putting all the money into it, where most of these shows are starting to look better than most movies I see nowadays. I'll go see Ant-Man and the Wasp, or like almost any movie in the theater, besides like an Avatar 2 or even the Batman, where it just looks like crap. But I watch House of the Dragon or this, and like, this is some of the most beautiful television I've ever seen in my life. So I look forward to seeing a lot more content from HBO Max. And yeah, guys, it's been a fun journey. Joel and Ellie's journey is such a masterful experience. All right, guys, it's been great talking to you. We'll try to find a new show to discuss pretty soon. But yeah, guys, I'm Schmook, and it's been fun. I'll catch y'all very soon. Bye-bye.